Today we are on page 49 in Tractate Yiruvin. This weekend, it's a upcoming event which is Parashat Emor and also the Lag BaOmer, the big celebration. I see in your faces you can't wait to shave. Just a few points before it begins. First, this Parashat Emor, which we are going to read this week, is the second in larger parsha in the mitzvot for the entire Torah. We have the first parasha in Chumash Dvarim, in Deuteronomy. There is a parasha, Ki Teitzeh, they have 74 mitzvot. But second in line, which is basically the largest in this Chumash, Torat Kohanim, Chumash Vayikra, Leviticus, is the Parashat Emor, this week's Torah portion, which contain 63 mitzvot. They have 24 positive and 39 negative. And some part of the mitzvot is in regard to the law of the Kohanim, and the larger part, it's a mitzvot related to the festivals, the Moadim. There's a famous Gemara in Tractate Megillah, page 30b, that speaks about the reason and the connection of this festival in our Chumash. But I would like to just give a minute in the famous Rashi at the beginning of this parasha. He basically paraphrased what the Gemara said in the Tractate Yevamot, page 114. The Torah said, Emor el HaKohanim bnei Aaron ve'amarta aleim. Talk to the Kohanim, sons of Aharon, and you should tell them. So the question is, why you repeat Emor ve'amarta? So Rashi quoted and explained the Gemara in Yevamot that's applied lahazhir gdolim al haktanim, to warn the oldest one to teach the youngest one, which means there is an obligation that we have to make sure that the next generation, our children, our grandchildren, follow a certain path. Now, Rabbi Zalman Sorotzkin asked a question. He said, so all right, I understand that, but let's think together. There are many mitzvot that we have to teach our children. Don't we have to teach them to eat kosher? Don't we have to teach them to observe Shabbat? Why the Torah specifically said, when it's come to the Kohanim, we should tell them and teach them the oldest upon youngest. And the Torah explains, and it said, the reason for that is because it's specifically applied to the Kohanim. So what has to do with the Kohanim? So he said, trace a scenario. Some of us here are Kohanim. So you have a son, and he sees that there is a very important person in the community pass. And he noticed that everyone else goes. Yet he sees that you don't go there. You don't go to the cemetery. So he comes to you and he asks you, Dad, how come you don't join everyone else? And he said, well, we are different. We are Kohanim. We cannot go to the cemetery. Wait, but this person was very important and everybody goes there. And you know, children, the minute they have this system of everyone else does something, everyone else gets this iPad, and everyone else gets type of stylish pants or stylish sunglasses, right? So I have to be the same, right? We saw it in Purim, if you remember. Remember the guy that dressed a costume like what is it, Bob Marlowe, and everybody want to look like him. So you have to tell your son, wait a second, we are different. We are not like everyone else. And not like everyone else, that's something that you need to work on them. It's not so simple to tell the children that you are different than others. And it's connected in a way to our Saturday night Sunday, because Saturday night Sunday is Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer. Excuse me. If you remember, excuse me, when we studied Tractate Me'ilah, page 17, the Gemara said that the Romans forbade three things. They not allow us to have a circumcision, they not allow us to observe Shabbat, and they not allow us to observe the law of purity. And if you remember when we studied it, the Gemara said that it was a great rabbi, his name is Itztrubali, that he shaved his hair, looks like a Roman's, and he went there and he was talking to them, and he convinced them like one of their, how do you call it in a stylish language, buddies. One of them convinced them that it makes no sense to put upon the Jews this type of decrees. And as a result, the Romans changed their mind and took it back. But that didn't help, because surely it took some time, and they realized that this guy was basically one of them. And they recognized that it was one of the rabbis, and they changed it back. And the Gemara elaborates and they said that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the one who we mainly celebrated Lag BaOmer, he himself decided to go there and to speak with them. And if you remember, the Gemara said that he met some type of a demon or shed, whatever you call it, like one type of heavenly entity. And he cried and didn't want to use it, and he said, I will speak directly. And he cried and he said that Hagar, when she ran away from Abraham, she saw an angel. Why you bring me this type of demons to help me? It's a famous Gemara. But the key point is, it's a very special time that we can teach the future generation. It's not only the law of Kohanim, but also Lag BaOmer is a great opportunity to have a discussion, not only over shaving our beard and do a haircut, but why we have a bonfire. As you know, in our community we're planning to have a big event with a bonfire. What's involved with the 33rd day of Lag BaOmer, and especially in this week, since there's so many mitzvot, is the largest part of mitzvot in the entire Chumash Vayikra, and is the second in large for the entire Torah. It's an opportunity to teach the next generation what Judaism is all about. Back to our subject, we are on page 49, 2 lines from the top of the page, 2 lines from the top of the page. Tanya kvatei de Rabbi Yehuda aliba de Shmuel. Amar Rabbi Shimon lema davar domeh. If you remember, we talked yesterday about 3 people. Let me see this chart. Remember, we talked yesterday. Does everyone see it? It's a Me'orot page, picture number 180. So in this picture, does everyone see it? Okay. So you see proper development A, B, and C. You see a little space between them, and you see the spot that connected to a public domain. So they said, if you have 3 people that dwell before Shabbat, it's try to juxtapose to these 3 different development. What does that mean? The שלוש חצרות הפתוחות זה לאזור פתחול ורשות הרבים. We try to juxtapose this situation that 3 people they slept on the way before Shabbat and they didn't dwell permanently, So we compare it to this situation. Soon you see how. They said, ערבו שתיים מהאמצעית, זו מביאה מתוך ביתה ואוכלת, וזו מביאה מתוך ביתה ואוכלת. If the two combine with this one, so each of them bring and eat together. Okay? Now, זו, one of the outer, מחזרת מותרה לתוך ביתה, allowed to return whatever left over to their property, and זו מחזרת לתוך ביתה. אבל חכמים הם בשלושתם אסורות. So, excuse me, the Ritva explain that the machloket here is as follows. Rabbi Shimon hold that the middle one, it's fine, you have the Eru, but the two independently are forbidden, each of them. Versus the sages said that the outer can join the middle one, but the middle one cannot join the other. So they said, and that's basically the Ritva way of understanding. Ve'azda Shmuel etamei, and Shmuel explained it to us. And basically Rashi said that two different explanations, but we go by the second one. דאמר שמואל, חצר שבין שתי מבואות ערווה עם שניהם אסורה עם שניהם. If you have a courtyard, do you see it? This courtyard. Does everyone see it? Okay. You see this courtyard, and you see this alleyway, and you see this courtyard. So you see these four houses, and you see the space in between and the courtyard. So he said the middle one is forbidden, so they're all forbidden. Why? Because he said it's part of this, which means you have to, it's like, can someone dance in two different weddings at the same time? So the same here, because people cannot dwell in two different locations. So he said, lo irvaim shnehem. So if it's not a joining together, so oseret al shnehem. So others cannot join. Now he said, hayta be'echad regila, u'be'echad ena regila. So let's say the people here get used here to walk here and to go there. Trace a situation, for example, I use always the example of Florida because that's the way they do a lot of development there. So imagine they need to go to the shul here. So people not going this way, they're going this way, right? Why? Because it's much convenience. So you go by the way that most of the people using that entrance. So he said, Ze sheregila bo asu, the one that gets used is forbidden because it gets used and it's not participate with the others. So therefore it's forbidden upon all of them to use the regular entrance. V'zeh she'ena regila bo, and the one that not get used to, you can carry. So it means the only one that you are forbidden to use in the alleyway is the courtyard that you get to use all the times. So, but if you have two entrances, and usually people prefer certain way, so therefore that's the one that is forbidden, because otherwise it's end Urim, it's not the dwelling, because one people in the courtyard did not forbidden the others. So that's the way Rashi explained it. Amar Rabba bar Abuna, ערוויים שאינה רגילה בו, הותר רגילה לעצמו. So it means, Rabbi bar Abuna said that in a place that it didn't get used to, which means, let's say, you get used to, you have in your house, and people here, Baruch Hashem, they have houses that have many entrances, especially those who live in a very large, Baruch Hashem, spacious houses. So you get used a certain entrance. Right, Gilbert?
Yes.
Right. So, if you use the entrance, like yourself from the kitchen, usually you use that entrance for all kind of fancy reasons, right?
Yes.
So now, what we said, that's the entrance, we have an issue. But if you go and you said, ערווה עם שינה רגילה בו, אותה רגילה לעצמו. But if you make the eruv with entrance that you not get used all the time, that you don't use usually, and now you designated it, it means you have your setup, your mindset, that I am going to use this Shabbat, this specific entrance, which means I turn around that entrance for that specific Shabbat. So everything turn around to that direction. ואמר רבא בר אבונה, אמר שמואל, אם ערווה רגילה לעצמו, וזה שאינה רגילה בו לא ערב. So he said, if you combine the regular, the middle one, independently, which means the people in the different yard, they made independent eruv, and this alleyway, he didn't make an independent eruv. So he said, דוחין אותה אצל שאינה רגילה בו. The people in the middle yard make the others to be part of that alleyway that they not get used to pass by. וכגון זה כופין על מידת סדום. So that's important to understand. The Mishnah said in the Ethics that there are different traits of people. One of them we call midat sdom. Midat sdom meaning that you do something to get even with others, which means I'm not going to do it and I make sure that others will not do it. Or to me it makes no difference, but I'm not doing it, and it's basically by me not doing it, even I'm not losing anything, I'm hurting everyone else. So, in other words, you are basically denigrating everyone else because you care less of a situation. Do you ever face this situation with people?
Yes.
Many times.
Many times. Yeah.
Right. So, therefore, how you do that? So there is a machloket, there's a heavy disputation among the early sages. What's involved here? That the Gemara used the language kofin, like you forced a person. What exactly involved in forcing a person? So there is one school of thought that the Chazon Ish and early Ritva said that it doesn't mean that you force a person. You're not forcing anyone. He said that the people who live in the middle yard, they're allowed to pass by this, which means because it doesn't make it a difference for that particular person, that particular tenant, that either way, so we basically disassociate ourselves from him. We isolated him, in a sense we ignore him. We treated him like he's not part of us. That's one school of thought, in order to avoid the problem of a prohibition of caring for everyone else. Because imagine, if you have, just for the sake of understanding, you have a development, you have some elderly people, they want, for example, to carry their talit to the synagogue. And now, because one guy refused to participate with everyone else, now everyone's stuck. Right? They need to leave the talit in advance, or they need to find some other solutions. Okay, just an example. Or go the other way, if you have somebody with a little babies, and they want to use something in order to bring the children to the synagogue. So now, if it's no eruv, they have a problem. So it's a one guy that is a problematic. All right, so that's one school of thought. But it was seriously rejected by everyone else, which means the Magen Avraham, the Meiri, the Nodab Yehuda, and many others. They said no, they really have to force him, because Eruv is everyone else. You have to force him, that to force the people who live in the middle section of the yard not to pass that alleyway that they get used to pass all the times. So again, the big question is, what does that mean, force, or forcing him? How do you force it? אמר רב יהודה, אמר שמואל, המקפיד על עירובו, אין עירובו עירוב. So imagine everyone bring a piece of bread. Everyone bring, let's say, 2 challah bread, 2 rolls. Okay? 2 nice size rolls. Mr. A and Mr. B and Mr. C and Mr. D and Mr. E. Okay? You have now all the people in the development. Now, you have one wise guy that he come in and he says, okay, I am participating with everyone else in the Eruv, but, do you ever attend those board meetings? But, what is the but? He said, I don't want anybody else to eat from my challah. This is my special whole wheat challah, and I don't want anybody else to eat it. Okay? So we said that his Eruv is not considering part of the Eruv. How come? So the rabbi said, Mashmo. What is the name of this tractate? What is the name of the Eruv? Eruv Shmo. What is the Eruv Shmo? So Rashi said, very beautifully, he said, שיהיו כולן מעורבים ומרוצים בו, שלא ימחה זה בחברו, אלא שותפות נוחה וערבה. Which means, he said, Eruv is like ta'arovet. It's a mixture, or a revut. That's something that is a share partnership. Ne'imut, something that is pleasant. So he said, imagine, let me give you an example in Shalom Bayis. Imagine you have 2 people, husband and wife, and it's not only they have 2 separate bank accounts. Everything they do separate. They are 2 different entities. They even nowadays there are some people who make a contract. It's like almost like 2 partners under one roof. And the reality is that they may be, like people in Hollywood, they go together to a public domains as a husband and wife. Yet, in their lives, everything else is separate. You guys are looking at me like I'm from Mars, right? But I think you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
So, in that sense, when it's come to Eruv, they said it has to be a real partnership. It can't have one guy that come out and said, oh, okay, I'm participating with everybody else in the development, but no one should eat for my part. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, there is a book called Roteina. It's a beautiful book. So he explained, he says, look, let's talk positive. What happened here? Before Ben Hashmashot, before the twilight, everyone brings the Eruv. Now they put a big, huge pot and put everyone else. Okay? So the only thing he asked everyone else is to wait until the sunset, until the time of Shabbat. So that we understand that when he said to others, do not use it. But later, you think maybe he doesn't have that problem. But the key point is, it's like sharing. When it's come to Eruv, you have to have peace, and you have to have a willingness to join together. So he said, Rabbi Chanina Amar, Eiruvo Eruv, Ela shenikra ma'anshei Vardina. Don't think that anything new in our world. It was a city called Vardina, that they are well known as a very greedy people. Again, I look at your faces, I think you'll find a lot of reality in many areas, in people. So that city was called Vardina, and they're well known. So he said, it's not that we don't call him, that's not considering an Eruv, but we basically call him like, okay, this guy is greedy, he's like one of Vardina. Okay? אמר רב יהודה אמר שמואל, החולק את עירובו אינו עירוב. He says, if someone wants to disassociate himself from others in Eruv, and he put independent utensil for himself, let's say he's very fastidious and he's very strict not to touch any food from someone else, so he joined with everybody else, but he bring his independent utensil, and he said, that's mine, and it's should be separate from everyone else. So they said it's not considering an Eruv, because in order to make an Eruv, you have to have a partnership, share partnership. It's almost like the old kibbutzim that used to do that, right? Keman, who hold that way? So he said Kebeit Shammai. Why? Because we said yesterday, the Tanya Chamisha shegavu et Eruvan, if there are 5 people that collected the bread for the Eruv, untanu b'shnei kelim, if they put the 2 separate utensils, Beit Shammai omrim, ein ze Eruv, Beit Hillel omrim arei ze Eruv. The disputation between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. One said that it's considering an Eruv, the other one said no. Which means that the din, what Shmuel said, it's only according to Beit Shammai. But usually we go, if it's a disputation between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, we go by Beit Hillel. So why Rav Yehuda said that it's not considering an Eruv? So the Gemara responded and said, Afilu teima Beit Hillel, even you tell me that Shmuel hold, as Beit Hillel said, אלא דמליין למען, עד כאן לא קמרי בית הילתם, אלא דמליין למען הווה דעתה. The Beit Hillel said that if you divided the Eruv to 2 separate utensils, is okay, it's only when you filled up the utensil and it left over bread that you can put it in that utensil and you have to put it in a different one, so the Eruv is valid, because you divided the Eruv only because of the circumstance that is no other spot in that utensil, and not because you want to divide it, and therefore it's not the opposite, the key meaning of the Eruv, which means mixture. אבל היכא דפלגי מפלג, but in the place that he divided the Eruv without any need for that utensil, lo, but Hillel didn't say that this Eruv is valid. Why? Because you can put all together. So it means there is a huge difference if I do not want to be partner with you or not. Because if I said clearly, I have nothing to do with you, that's a different story. So now we ask, V'tarte lamali, why we need to bring 2 proof to Shmuel that other cannot eat that part of the if others are very strict not to eat any part from the other, and also that if divided in 2 different utensils, it's not considering an Eruv, because in both cases the Eruv is invalid for the same reason, that as long as they don't want to have a full, sincere partnership, so the Eruv, it's not considering one serious. You have to remember, when you're dealing, for example, with contract between people, so the first thing need to be is, which is called sincerity. In other words, you need to show a good faith. When you negotiate contract, you have to have a good faith. What does that mean, good faith? For example, you talk to someone. You have someone that you employ. And that fellow you employ work for you. Now you want to talk about future contract. And you start playing games. You said, okay, let's negotiate about contract. And the guy take you seriously and he's not looking elsewhere, and he think that you really wants to renew his contract. And then you come back and you said, well, how about if we talk about it next month? And then you come back next month and you talk, and you agree to the term and condition, and then he come back and he said, well, how about if we talk about it again next month? What do you think? Do you have a good faith or you don't have a good faith? What is the feeling? So the same here, he says, tzrichei. We have to have both. Why? Mishum dekapid, because he is very scrupulous that other will not join him. But if they divided the Eruv to two different utensils, may we say that the Eruv is not valid because he is not scrupulous of the key part of partnership. That if you divided the Eruv to two different utensils is invalid, you may say that the reason mishum defalgei miflag, because you really divided it to two parts. Avalatam, that you did not divided it eimalo, you may say that it's not valid tzricha. So therefore Shmuel need to tell us both halachot. Amar leRabbi Abba leRav Yehuda bevei ma'atzar ledever Rav Zakai. It's the place that they have the making the wine. Mi amar Shmuel acholek et eruvo eino eruv. So who said that if you put the eruv in a separate utensil, it's not considering a good one? V'amar Shmuel, bait shemenichim bo eruv. If you have a yard that the partners put the eruv there, eino tzarich liten et hapat. He doesn't need to bring his bread for the purpose of the eruv. My tama. What's the reason? Lam mishum damar de kiman de manach besala, kiman de manach achadami. So because he put this is in a basket, it's considering the same as other put their part in the eruv. Achenami kiman de manach besala, kiman de manach achadami. So it's considering as like you put it together with the bread that they collected from all the other people. Amar le hacha af al pi she'ein pat. Here the eruv is valid even this owner doesn't have independent bread. My tama the chuluacha dairi, that it's like all the people in the yard live together in this house that you found the bread, and that's the foundation of the eruv, which is that it's considering it's like they all live in one domain, and therefore all the people and in that domain and the people in the yard considering as one domain that you can carry for the entire place, and therefore whoever lives there permanently, he doesn't need to partake of the eruv, because this is the reason the Shmuel said, and not because you need to have another part of the in your house. So here you see a proof that you can divide the bread in two different utensils. Now we are speaking about the definition of the Eruv Chatzerot, and we said Amar Shmuel Eruv Mishum Kinyan, which means what exactly happened in the Eruv? It's like you united all the people in the yard, because the persons who live in the center house, he allow everybody else to use everything else. Why? Because they collected the bread in one place in his house, and everyone basically is considering a partner in his house, and therefore all the other people in that development are basically depend on that one, and it's considering it's one domain. That's what Rashi said. The whole idea of kinyanim, you remember before Pesach, for example, when people sell the chametz, so remember that we do some type of kinyan. You take the handkerchief and you lift it up. So the idea of kinyan is when you have transactions between two partners, you make some type of a affirmation. So in that sense, he holds that the idea of making the affirmation of a eruv is by having all the partners join and being part of one guy that he using his domain as a center part that apply to everyone else. Ve'im tomar, if you ask, mipnei ma en konim b'ma'a. Ma'a, it was some type of coin in those days. So why you don't tell me that they all join with that money? Why the sages say that you should have a bread? He said, mipnei shena metzuya b'arvei Shabbatot. Because when people need to make the Eruv, it's hard to get for them this coin. So they said, bread everyone has. So the minutes, Tosfot explained, the minutes you ask for bread, everybody have a bread, everybody partake of their bread, collected in one utensil, and you're done. Simple. So the Gemara asks, if that's the reason why you don't use the Ma'ah, that coin, Heicha de Irav miu liknei. So it means not the way that in an issue you wish to, but by force of circumstance, if you do not have bread, you may use that money, that coin, to make so even the original decree is nothing to do with the money, or not to do the part of the requirement with the money. But why money will not help to make this Eruv, to be part of the Eruv? So they said, Gzera Shema Yomru Ma'aikar. So maybe they said that the center part of the Eruv is that money. V'zimnen de lo shchiach ma'a. Not always there are situations that people doesn't have that. Either because it's a Friday and it's a Friday afternoon and people that coin maybe not in their pocket, or maybe not everyone can make it right away and to bring it. Not everyone, either they have the capability or so they said velo ate la'aruve beipad. So therefore no one think, okay, so if that's the case we can use bread. So the ate eruv le'ikalkulei, which means the whole point of learning the principles of Eruv will be forgotten, and people think that it's all involved with the coin, with the money that they put together. So it said forget it. Rabba Amar, just remember, if they put the bread, people start asking. But if you put the money, usually people in their mindset just take the money and leave me alone. They don't want to get involved, they don't want to learn anything. Rabba Amar, Eruv mishum dira. The reason that one person united all the people in the yard, it's considering it's like all have a joint property in that Eruv, which means even they don't have a monetary business partnership with this guy, they don't change the title of that property, but because each person has his mindset over his own challah bread or his own bread, so therefore everyone else considering it's like part or partner of the dweller in that courtyard, and therefore it's considering for the purpose of halacha it's like one single unit, and all the yard is considering as one. My benayu, my benayu. So ika benayu kli. So they said, what's the difference? So the Rashba explained, and he said that each one of them needs to bring a utensil in order to make this Eruv, which means if according to Shmuel that Eruv is valid if you use it's combined with utensil, it's like Kinyan Suda. But according to Rabbah, because it's the dwelling, that's the key. So if you bring utensil, it's not sufficient. People usually the mindset is over the food, over the bread, but not over the utensils. Upachot mishave pruta, and it's also in the size of the value of pruta. So Shmuel hold that this will not be a valid Eruv, as there is no acquisition with something less than the value of a pruta, which is a very small coin. So therefore, he hold that it's not good. But the sages hold that it's effective by establishing a person's residence, since can be done even with the amount of food worth less than pruta, which is a very small amount, and also vekatan. And there's another one, is the question if the minor may collect an eruv from the resident of the courtyard and deposit it in one of the houses. So according to Shmuel, it's not valid. According to the rabbis, it is valid. So we just turned to 49b. Tosfot explained to us the issue with minor. En kinyano kinyan, we cannot make a minor a shaliach, an emissary, because you don't count on a minor. Meaning, if you send someone to do something for you, you have to have the person with the perfect halachic category. A minor, it may be good, it may be not. So therefore, by halacha, we don't consider a minor as a maaseh kinyan, that he can do a final affirmation. So, according to you, it's a problem. According to Shmuel, it's a problem. According to you, that people in the yard is considering as a living in the place that you have this bread. It's a problem. Why? Because basically, how do you explain that everyone can use that? And according to Shmuel, it's also a problem, because you said that everyone partake of that spot that the eruv is there. Hatanya chamisha shegavu et eruvam. We learn in the Braita, if 5 people collect their eruv, which means in order to allow them to carry from their domain to other domains, כשהם מוליכים את עירובין למקום אחר, when they take the eruv elsewhere in order to establish an eruv together with another courtyard, so he said אחד מוליך לכולן, so one person may take it there for all of them. So the big here is that the person can carry to the other yard, and he doesn't need. It's enough that one of the people that participate in that put his independent bread, the second yard, and he said, "Hud nihu dekane." So it means that the person who acquire right, he is the only one who acquire right, and nobody else. And he said, "Vetu la," which means that person who gain the residence, he is the one who get it, and nobody else. So it means, if that's the case, so how other people can rely on that eruv? So Amar lei Rabba say to Abaye, lo ledidei kasha v'lo Shmuel kasha. It's not the problem in either one. Why? Shlichut dechulu kavid. He is making the acquisition that determining the residence for everyone, which means that he made the eruv in the second yard, that everyone else participate with that yard. And it's like an emissary of those people. He can acquire for them a dwelling in the house, the second yard. That's according to Shmuel, and also acquire a place of residence in that spot according to Rabbah. So you see here, the Rabbah said that the place of dwelling is the place that he have his food, and these people didn't bring the food to the second yard. But the Chazon Ish explained the reason is because the decree of the sages in that eruv, it's that one of the people in that development that participate in an eruv together, he's considering as one that he's the shaliach, he's one that he is the emissary for everyone else, and therefore, by putting him as an emissary, he is a representative for everyone else. That's Chazon Ish and Or HaChaim, Pei Gimel 83. אמר רבא בר חמא, אמר רבא אמר חמא, אמר רב חמא בר גיורא אמר רב הלכה כרבי שמעון, which means we go by Rabbi Shimon that is lenient in the din of the 3 yards, that they join together with the outer yard, and so they said that they both goes from internal to out and out internal. You remember the picture I showed you earlier. And that's the way, by the way, the practical halacha, which we'll discuss later. The Rashba, the Ritva, and other hold that way. Now we're going to the Mishnah, and the Mishnah, I would like to share with you the picture from Meorot Hadaf, picture 182. Mi sheba baderech vechashcha lo. If one is coming along the way on Shabbat Eve, and it grew dark, so he is in a way and he is here. Now let's look. You see the radius, each side is 2000 cubit, and that's the radius, okay? Vaya makir ilanu gader, that you recognize either a fence or tree, so but it's either 2000 cubit or less from the place that is E. ואמר שביתתי תחתיו, לא אמר כלום, and he said my residence will be beneath the tree or around that fence, so it's nothing, because he did not establish a fixed location for his residence. So he said why? Because under the tree or under the fence it's not a defined place, because he didn't say specifically in what location of 4 cubit under that tree or under that fence he decided to dwell. Basically, Kinyan Shvita apply only the place that you have a clear partition around it. That it's not bigger. If you remember, we talk about 5,000 cubit square feet, but or it's a 4 by 4 cubits. Otherwise, the tree or fence is not considering a partition. However, if he said Shvitati bi'ikari, if he said that I'm going to dwell around the specific tree's trunk, so he basically acquired residence there. So he said, מהלך ממקום רגליו ועד עיקרו 2,000 אמה, ומעיקרו ועד ביתו 2,000 אמה, נמצא מהלך משחשיכה עד 4,000 אמה. So he can walk from that place 2,000, which means when it's dark, he can exceed it. We walk after nightfall the total of 4,000 cubits. So now the Mishnah speaks about if someone is walking a journey and he didn't dwell, he didn't make his mind where he's going to dwell. So he said, if he's not familiar with the tree or any noticeable landmark, or is not expert in the Jewish law, ואמר שביתתי במקומי זכה לו מקומו 2,000 אמה לכל רוח, but if he said I'm going to dwell here, so it's 2,000 cubits to each direction. So originally he said that you can go 4, now we have in each direction 2,000. And he said agulot, so which means that you're circling around a goal. Okay, so if it's agulot, then he said divrei Rabbi Chanina ben Tignus. So in order to complete this discussion, so they talk about here about Shabbat limits, how you measure around a person the place for his dwelling. So he said a 2,000 cubit, the way you put the radius and you move the radius throughout his domain, which means you take from the place that he's staying the radius, and he can go either direction, but he's going in the circle, in the full circle of 360. והחכמים אומרים מרובעות. The sages said you don't measure that way, you measure as a square. Okay? כטבלה מרובעת. It's like the measure of the square tablet, which each side measuring 4,000 cubit. So he said, כדי שלא נזכר לזוויות, so that he gains the corners. You see, this is the corner. If you go by the opinion of Rabbi Chanina ben Antignos, you lost the corners. If you go by the sages that you go by the square tablets, so you gain the spot of the corner, of each corner. Clear?
Clear.
Okay. Now he said, וזוהי שאמרו, העני מערב ברגליו. So that's what they said, that if a poor person, a pauper, establish an eruv in his feet, which means who does not have a bread required to establish an eruv, may walk anywhere within his Shabbat limit, and he can declare, this is my residence, and the Shabbat limit is measured for that location. And he said, אמר רבי מאיר, אנו אין לנו אלא אני, which means we are not talking only about the pauper, which means someone doesn't have the bread, so you can use the feet, but the rich person, which means someone who have a bread, he needs to use the bread in order to make a eruv valid. רבי יהודה אומר, אחד עני ואחד עשיר לא אמרו מערבים בפת, אלא להקל לעשיר שלא יצא ויערב ברגליו, which means that it makes no difference if it's a poor or rich. The only idea is, in order to be lenient with the wealthy person, that he doesn't need to exert himself to go and establish an eruv in his feet, which means he can appoint an agent or emissary to place bread for him in that location. So the Gemara said, "Mai lo amar klum." So what does that mean when the Mishnah said he has not said anything? Amarav lo amar klum kol ikar, which means whatever he said, it doesn't help. He cannot go even under the tree. ושמואל אמר לא אמר כלום, אבל תחתיו של אילן מצא הזיל, which means that Shmuel said that he doesn't say anything, but under this tree you see under the tree you see the little shed, so he can go and use there, which means beneath the tree, if he bought the entirely within 2,000 cubit of his present location, he may indeed go there. So he said, "V'na'asa tachtav shel ilan chamar gamal." So whatever it's under that, beneath the tree, becomes comparable to both the donkey driver who walk behind the animal and prods, and the camel driver, because one is at the front, one is on the back. So Rashi said here, ונעשה תחתיו של אילן, רוחב נטיית גופו של אילן עם רוחב 20 או 30 אמה, נעשה לו חמר גמל, כלומר מושכו לכאן ולכאן. So I explain in my book that ברורה, כלומר ברש"י על הש"ס, that the חמר גמל is something that you hear many times. חמר is one, you lead the animal from the front, one you lead the animal from the back. If you look at the people that lead the camels, or people who go with the donkey. So that's originated in the earlier what we said in page 35. So it means we basically compare, we use some type of analogy to the other, which means the same, you can call it even a simile or euphemism, which you use a donkey and a camel to compare to the under the tree. that it's belonged to both places. The place that that his house and the place that he walked. Usually you go in a stringency, that's the way that Rashi said here, and I encourage you to read the whole explanation. Ba limdod min hatzafon, modedim lo min hadarom. So they explain here, ba limdod, this is the north. Okay? So if we come and measure from the north, you measure from the south. So if you want to measure from the north part of the tree, in order to get to his house on Shabbat, that is 2,000 cubits north from the tree, so we purposely go from the south. Meaning the south from the domain under or beneath that tree. So if you measure, did you see the picture?
Yes.
So if you measure in that way, you go the opposite. And the same, Balim Dod Mina Darom, that's the next picture. Modedim Lo Mina Tzafon. Okay, so this is the place he's staying, this is the tree, this is the north. So if he comes and he measures from the south, we measure from the north. So that opposite on purpose. You see it? So if he comes, measure distance from his home, from the south, one measurement, the distance for him is for the north. So explain just 2 lines in the next page. And they said, Amar Rabba Maita Maderav. Rabba asked, what's the reason that Rav's statement that one who declares his intention to establish residence beneath the tree is nothing at all? He said, Mishum de lo mesayem atrei, because the place that designated is not clearly and precisely defined. So since he's not established his residence in one practical location, he has not established it at all. Now we're going to a practical halachot. Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 386. Chatzer sheben shte mevot. You have a residence of a courtyard between 2 alleyways. So you establish an eruv in both alleyways. So the residents are permitted to carry into each of the alleyways, and it's permitted to carry from each alleyways into the courtyard. However, it's prohibited to carry from one alleyway to the other via the courtyard until the residents of the 2 alleyways establish an eruv in the same house that the courtyard. Also, we said that a makpid al eruvo, if one is particular that others not eat of his eruv, and we brought several examples, he invalidates the eruv, because we said that eruv has to be a partnership. If one separates his eruv from the other eruvim, again, he invalidates the eruv unless one utensil is filled and part of the eruv is placed in a different utensil. Now, the residents of the house in which the eruv is placed are not required to contribute bread. That's the state of Shmuel, because they use their residence. Now, in Eruvei Chatzerot, the idea is that an eruv functions to establish residence, and therefore it needs to be worth some valid coin, like pruta. Nevertheless, it cannot be established with the utensils. Now, if it's a minor involved, the minor can collect the eruv, and it's even, according to Tosfot, is possible to establish an eruv in a minor's house, because the halacha is, according to Rabbi Yochanan opinion, dispute the Shmuel. Since the Rabbah's opinion is according with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, the halacha is according to the Rabbah. We said also that if one was walking along the road before the nightfall on Friday, and he said, let my residence be alongside that tree trunk, or is mentioned the other specific location within the 2,000 cubits of his current location, he established residence in that place, and he may walk an additional 2,000 cubits from there. Now, when the sages spoke of 2,000 cubits, they did not refer to a circle with a radius of 2,000 cubits, rather the rules that one is permitted to walk within the square shape area. Remember we talked about the corner, which is 4,000 cubits on each side. So in that way, he gained the right to walk in area of the corners. So that's Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 399. If one established residence in location that lacking clearly detachment boundaries, which means beneath the tree, if the part of the tree is more than 2,000 cubits away from the current location, it's not established residence there. Otherwise, it's fine, and that's again in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, but it's 409.
Kar tu